Hi, this is the voice of Heidie Calero with another fascinating economic capsule on Puerto Rico. And this time I've entitled our economic capsule An Inconvenient Truth. What a challenging title. And you'll know why I have entitled it An Inconvenient Truth once you hear the entire capsule. As I'm depicting right now, there are two pies that I'm showing here. The one on the left is the total recovery funds that have come from or have been allocated by U.S. Congress to Puerto Rico, be it because of Hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2017, be it because of the earthquakes in Puerto Rico as of January of 2020, and then, of course, the pandemic of COVID-19, the Rescue the CARES Act as of 2020, 2021. All those three components are now into this big amount of $79.9 billion. The segment that is in orange is what has been the funds that have been obligated, because there are different phases. Once Congress allocates or approves these budgets, they are going to be obligated by the jurisdiction that receives these funds. And then there are other phases, and the final one is disbursement of those funds. So of those $79.9 billion, 85% or $67.6 billion have been obligated in different projects in Puerto Rico. There's still a huge amount of money, $12.3 billion or 15%, that have not been obligated. And it is high time that Puerto Rico started focusing on those $12.3 billion that have not yet been obligated. The pie on the right-hand side, as you're seeing here, is the disbursement of those obligated funds. So of those $67.6 billion, the segment that is in green is what has been disbursed. So it's only $24.4 billion or 36%. And this is where we start seeing, well, what is the relevance of this inconvenient truth? Why is it that Puerto Rico has received so many funds, has obligated so many funds, and yet only 36% have been dispersed? In this next table that I'm depicting for you is the dispersed funds by sector, be it in housing, transportation, municipalities, all that you're seeing there. And then we have the column that says obligated, the funds that have been obligated, which amount to the total of $67.6 billion. And then the dispersed column, which is the $24.4 billion that I have mentioned in the pies before. Let's look at housing. Of the $2.3 billion or $2,325.5 million, $1,340 million have been dispersed. Close to 60% or 58% have been dispersed. So at least in terms of housing, we have been seeing more of that reconstruction of units, or be it because of the floods, relief to people in terms of that housing assistance. In transportation, $662.6 million, and we all say there's so many potholes in our highways, in our roads, and there's no public lighting. There's so many roads that are dark. Well, how much of that has been dispersed? Only $220 million, 33%. Is it because the Highway Authority or the Department of Transportation here in Puerto Rico doesn't have the imagination to really put a lot of muscle behind, say, the design, the planning, the permitting, moving ahead in terms of disbursement of funds that have been obligated? That is the inconvenient truth. Municipalities of $18,327.5 million that have been obligated, only $823.7 million have been dispersed. That's scarcely 4%. Those are the CDBG, DR, and the city revitalization programs. And you know what? Now, for any of these funds, they are required all these planning that takes about 6 months. All these consultants, be it local, but yet there are also American companies here that are making money out of all these stages that take so much time, and that they're requesting also the input of the communities. All that takes time. There are companies that have here 35 municipalities, others have 3 or 4 municipalities, and they are all doing the same thing. And you really wonder whether those plans are going to be taken to fruition, really how much of that is going to be being implemented, and yet time elapses. But if the federal bureaucracy requires that to disperse 10 cents you need a planning that you have to pay $30, $50, $100,000 to all these planners, and with the input of the communities, and yet those then for those projects that the municipality has said, oh yeah, that's good for my municipality, that they are going to be started to be in the planning and design or the permitting stage, and then finally in the construction stage. It's going to take us 10, 20, 24 before those funds are going to be dispersed, and yet, you know, by that time there's going to be a new election, and come January of 2025, there's going to be a new president of the United States, and maybe a new Congress that might say, Puerto Rico, you have not used those funds. The inconvenient truth is that you have not used them properly, so we are going to take them out. So, an inconvenient truth. Let's look at energy. Our grid was totally, it's in a fragile situation after Hurricane Maria devastated the entire island electrical grid. Well, $12,216 million have been obligated for this transmission, production, the renewable energy, all those things that are necessary for the components of the electrical grid. Of that, you know how much has been dispersed? $1,820 million. 15% has been dispersed. 15%, and yet we have with Luma, this privatized organization company that is in charge of the distribution and maintenance of this grid, and yet they haven't even applied for reimbursements. I mean, shame on you, an inconvenient truth, and that is the hard reality. In water, $4,088 million. Well, of that, how much has been dispersed? $331.6 million, only 8%. We've heard the executive director of the Puerto Rico Aqueduct and Sewer Authority say, look, more than 60% of all the water that we process, it just goes through all these pipes that are broken or filtered through. Jesus, you have money there. Why have you not moved faster? Well, in education, not that the Department of Education needs more money. There are enough, like a $4,000 million budget that they have. Well, this is for the schools that were damaged by the earthquakes in January of 2020. Well, $3,559.5 million were obligated. Of that, only $106.3 million have been dispersed. 3%. Shame on you, Puerto Rico. And then there are other projects that have been moving faster, like $27,206 million, be it public buildings and so on, other projects, and at least those have been dispersed quicker, $19,808 million, or 73%. Well, certainly the inconvenient truth is that we have not moved fast enough. Puerto Rico has a very bad presentation card before Congress because of all the corruption that has taken place, be it because of mayors, of legislators, of all these federal funds that have been badly used. And so now, if they're going to disperse 10 cents, so they will require an audit of 20 cents, and so it's very difficult. You have all these layers requiring to oversee that the funds are used properly. Well, that adds time and money. And then the other layer is Puerto Rico's incompetence in terms of moving quickly in terms of those projects, those plans. Why are they not in place? We are going to have the happy birthday, the 5th happy birthday of Hurricane Maria, September 20 of this year. It's almost 5 years. And we are still with all these FEMA reconstruction funds. Shame on Puerto Rico. And the thing is that there is still another layer. It's not only the executive branch, it's the legislative branch in Puerto Rico, it's the municipalities, but it is also the insurance companies, because FEMA will not disperse monies for properties that have been insured. And many of these insurance companies have been just litigating all these claims that have been coming from the government, from the municipalities, and so they go to court because they're not in agreement with that. And this is the musical chairs. Oh, I'll change lawyers, and so the judge and the court also gives them a chance. Well, you know what, judges, move faster. Justice slow, justice is no justice at all. Don't you think that economic activity also needs you? This is not blind justice. The woman with the blinders cannot be justice at all. You need to really move as well. This is the inconvenient truth. And finally, just to make the point of how Puerto Rico could also move faster, look at all these infrastructure projects as of Q3 2022, like $3.7 billion in all those funds that have been obligated. Of those, there are $2,318.5 million that are in the permitting stage, 62%. Don't you think there's an urgency in this? Of those in construction phase, is $1,236.4 million, or 33%, also facing challenges of labor, construction workers that we need. And of all that money, of all that $3.7 billion for infrastructure projects, only $200.6 million, 5% have been completed. This is the inconvenient truth. Puerto Rico has to move faster. It has to really accelerate its permitting process. It needs to be creative in terms of its planning stages. This judicial branch also has to move quicker, and certainly we cannot have so much incompetence in terms of using these funds, because come January of 2025, there's going to be a new president of the United States. And if we have not used those monies, and at this stage, at this pace, it seems Puerto Rico will just waste another opportunity to use these funds wisely. What an inconvenient truth. If you like our economic capsule, don't forget to subscribe to YouTube under the voice of Heidie Calero. Weekly, we have these economic capsules. To give us a like in those of interest to you, and don't forget that the economy is all of us. Thank you.